Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. Let's go ahead and wrap up the month of September. September was an interesting month for me. I had very lofty reading goals for this month, and I actually think I did pretty well overall with getting through a lot of the books I had on my list. I had a pretty long vacation planned for this month, and as usual, I was able to read a lot and also not a lot at the same time. That's just how vacation is with me. Sometimes I'm able to just blaze through a book, and other times not as much. Luckily, that vacation involved a pretty long drive, so I was able to get through a couple different things on that, and it kept me up to date on some of the podcasts that I like to listen to, which cuts into my reading time. Big NFL guy, so a lot of NFL podcasts take up a lot of my reading time. But with that all being said, let's go ahead and start with the first book I finished this month. So the first book I finished in this month was Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. This is book 3 on the Stormlight Archive, and once again, it was a really good book. I did give it 4 stars, and this was an interesting book. This was the first Stormlight book where I felt like pacing was a little bit of an issue. Even in Way of Kings, where I didn't really understand everything that was going on yet, and I was kind of getting used to the story and everything that happens in Way of Kings, I felt like it had a good pace. This one, and I think I said in my review, which you can check out, is that looking back, I think this will probably end up being one of the most important Stormlight books, but not necessarily my favorite. The ending of this book is super explosive. It's really great. I mean, the ending is just, the Sanderlanche to an extreme that I had yet to experience at this point. But leading up to it, there are definitely some parts that felt like they ran long. And once again, I feel like it's a lot of information that is going to be needed as the series continues and progresses, but it's not always the most exciting thing to read. I think this is probably my least favorite of the Stormlight books, but that by no means means it's a bad book. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'll just go ahead and spoil it before we get through the rest of the books. This is my book of the month. I know it sounded like I was being negative. This is a really, really good book. Book of the month, is super, super good. If you haven't read Stormlight, what are you doing? Go ahead, pick it up, read it. It's just fantastic. After such a long book, I needed something a little bit shorter, and that took me to Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. This is a classic sci-fi, and one that I really think has stood up to the test of time. I think if you want to dip your toes into what most people would consider, old, harder sci-fi, this is a book to go to. It is a little bit dry. Characters aren't the most prevalent and important thing. It's definitely an ideas book with some really interesting concepts, but overall, I think it's definitely worth your time, especially if you're not very well versed in science fiction, especially some of the classic stuff. This is a must read. There will be some things that you pick up from this book that you see throughout modern day science fiction, and I really just think it's a necessity to read this if you want to be well versed in the genre. Arthur C. Clarke is probably best known for 2001: A Space Odyssey. I read that, and I think I probably have this ranked above that. So, I think he has a huge catalog. I got some comments in that telling me about, what was it called? Moon something? Another good book by him that I'm going to read at some point. But once again, Arthur C. Clarke, this was a great change of pace, going in between just a massive, massive book in Stormlight. This is the kind of book that you can get through in like a day or two because it's not very long, and you're going to want to know the mystery. It's going to make you want to turn the page, even if the characters aren't the thing you're going to be attached to by the time the story is over. And I can't stay away from the Stormlight Archives for too long. If you don't know, I am trying to read through all of the Cosmere this year. We are getting pretty down to the wire, and I don't know if I'm going to end up making it by the time this month, or by the time this year is over. I'm hoping that I can still do it. I might have to push a little bit to make it happen. But that being said, I did end up reading Dawnshard this month as well. This is probably the best novella I've read. It's up there. I'd really have to sit down, look at my list, and really debate on what actually is the best. And part of the reason is this just felt like Stormlight Extra, almost like a director's cut of Oathbringer. This almost felt like this could have just been thrown into Oathbringer kind of. The timeline would have been weird if that happened, but you know what I mean. I really like this novella. I think it's really good. I think if you're not reading Sanderson's novellas, you are definitely making a mistake. Between Dawnshard, Emperor's Soul, those are definitely 2 of the best novellas I've ever read, and they're definitely something worth your time. I will say I did have negatives about this, but in general, it's just, it's also not really fair to call this a novella. This is almost longer than some books I read. I think this is actually longer than one of the books I'll mention in this wrap up. So, it's an interesting novella for sure, but it's always nice to be in the world of Roshar, and so I enjoyed that read as well. After Dawnshard, I picked up The Prophet of Edan by fellow booktuber Philip Chase. This was a pretty big improvement. I said the same thing in my review of this book, but I really thought this was a huge improvement on book 1. I liked book 1. I really thought it had ups and downs, and that book one definitely had some things happen that I was not a fan of. There were characters I was not a fan of, directions and things that happened that I was not a fan of. I cannot say the same for this book. This book delivered on some things I wanted. Once again, excellent soft magic system, excellent world building, really built out the rest of the world. The little bits and pieces that Philip adds into here is great. There's some really great nature things in here. All in all, I was really impressed with this book. I thought it was a really big step up. Really glad I'm reading it. And I do have the next book behind me back on my shelf that hopefully I will get to next month. We'll see. Check out my TBR to see that. It is October, so I'm throwing in some horror reads. If you haven't seen that, I have a video up where I'm trying to get some feedback on maybe some books I should include on next month's TBR. So check that out before my TBR comes out for the month of October. And the last book I finished this month was another science fiction book, Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This was a super fast-paced read. It's really kind of like a techno thriller, kind of, I mean, there's good sci-fi in here. It's very mysterious, a great page turner. I really think that if you were looking for another book to break up some of your, long fantasy series or other long reads, Dark Matter is a great choice. And I also found it really interesting to read one of the classic sci-fi greats and childhood's end this month, and then also read a more modern science fiction book in Dark Matter. Really could compare and contrast the differences. One was definitely much more of an ideas book, where the Blake Crouch Dark Matter book was much more of a using science fiction to tell an interesting story, and it wasn't necessarily the most important aspect of it. I mean, the whole reason the story happens is because of a science fiction element, but really the most important thing in Dark Matter is family and that desire to reunite with loved ones. And just seeing the difference between characters in Dark Matter and Childhood End was really good. I really enjoyed it, and I don't think I said this, all of the books this month got 4-star. I'm still looking for my 5-star read, my next 5-star read for this year. It's been about 3 or 4 months since I had one, so maybe I won't get another one this month. But that is the last book I finished, and I will mention the 2 books that I am working through. One I think I will end up finishing this month. It is only the 29th right now, and it's a very short, well, not very short, but it is a much shorter fantasy book, and that is Godkiller by Hannah Kanner. And you can see I am pretty close to 50%, and I really haven't even put too much effort into reading this one yet. So far, I am enjoying it. I think I'm going to have a pretty good review for this come out whenever I finish it. I'm already thinking of some things that people will not like about this book, funny enough. There are some things that have already happened in this that I think people will really dislike, and I think it's also something that people will really like. So I think this is a really interesting read. So far, enjoying it. It's right now teetering on the line of a 3 to 4-star. So we'll see. We're only halfway, like I said, so there's definitely a lot of room for it to improve and improve. I'm saying that like it's bad. I've thoroughly enjoyed it so far. And once again, this is my favorite cover of the year still. I absolutely love this beautiful color. It's great. So keep a lookout for a review. I will get that out as soon as I finish it. And the last book that I started this month, I had originally hoped to get much further along with this than I have, but that's the thing with vacation. I got a lot done early on and then not so much later. So I am, 50 pages into this massive thing? Yeah, I am on page 53, so not very far into Rhythm of War, but I will definitely be making a little bit more progress on that this weekend before we hit October. Maybe I can get like 20% of the way through it before this month is actually over, but that would be great. And the last book I wanted to mention just really quick is this book, my Jenny Wirtz book, The War Host of Vastmark. I didn't actually get to start it. I wanted to, but I didn't want to be reading 2 physical books at the same time. I was originally going to read Godkiller from that physical edition I have, and I ended up getting the audiobook. So I'm actually have 2 audiobooks right now with Rhythm of War and Godkiller. So I could have actually probably started this, but I just felt better of only having started 2 books at a time. 3 just seems like none of them are going to get done in a timely fashion. So this is still definitely on my radar and will be on my October TBR, which you can catch very soon. Now let's go ahead and move over to Manga, which I am so behind on. Vacation book-wise went fine. Manga-wise did not read anything, so I am behind on To Your Eternity, which I am trying to follow along with the Philip Chase, Murphy Napier read-along they do. It's a lot of fun being involved in that and seeing their commentary on it and everything. So that is a new series for me. It seems to definitely be a tearjerker and very emotional, and so far I really like that. I think I've read 2 volumes of it, so not super far into that series yet. I don't think it's technically finished yet. I think it's close, but nonetheless, I am enjoying that. And then all of my other series that I am reading, Berserk, Vinland Saga, One Piece, My Hero, Black Clover, Boruto. Am I missing any? Oh, more Dragon Ball Z. those are all ones I am very behind on. Need to read some chapters. Obviously, some of the longer series like One Piece. I'm a newbie when it comes to One Piece. It's kind of my one missing genre, or not genre, one of the big staples I'm missing. You know, I've read Naruto and some of the other big staples of the genre, but you know, for whatever reason, just kind of skipped One Piece. So outside of that, I'm very behind, and you know, we'll work on that when I get time. I'm a very streaky reader when it comes to manga. I have to be in the mood for it, and then I'll read like 100 chapters in a weekend or more, and it's great, but I just haven't really been in that mood recently. So that's that for manga. For TV and video games, I'm still watching Buffy, getting very close. There's actually a book coming out that's a companion after the series. So I'm pretty excited about that. So I need to hurry up and finish it so I can read that, because I think it'll be pretty interesting to see a book set sometime after the events of the series, which I don't even actually know what they are. Celebrity Jeopardy is back. Always enjoy Jeopardy, and Celebrity Jeopardy is fun. Me and my girlfriend watch that, and it's just a good time. We try to see how many of the answers we can get. And on the video game front, CS2 is coming out. CS2 is coming out, and you know, I've played a lot of CSGO in my time, and the fact that it's not going to be there anymore and we're getting a whole new game is interesting. I'm actually going to go ahead and play some of it for the first, well, I was in the beta and everything, but we'll be playing it now that it's released after I finish filming this video with a couple friends. So that will definitely be an interesting change. I've noticed that it feels a little different. It's not anything too drastic, but there's definitely some elements, specifically the sprays, that they just feel a little different. I don't know, maybe it's a me thing, but if you play it, let me know if you have dabbled in CS2 and if you think it is any different than CSGO. I mean, obviously it's different, slightly different engine. You know, they've worked on it quite a bit, but let me know if you have noticed just a slight difference. It's not that different, but it's a little different. And that was my month of September. Definitely a pretty good reading month, and some more reading months ahead. Let me know what your book of the month was down below in the comments, and as always, I hope you have a good one.